Hi, Renee. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, and I want to thank you for making time to speak with me today.
Of course, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. I'm with Renee Golden. I've asked her on here to share a testimonial of her births and also share a little bit about her works. So I'm going to start with your bio. Renee Golden walks with women through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum as a sovereign birth guide and birth keeper. She is passionate about supporting women to hone their intuition and step into their power during the transition into motherhood. After her first birth became over medicalized, Renee learned all she could about the physiology of birth, routine interventions, and the maternity system. Emboldened with passion and confidence to claim the birth experience she always wanted, she went on to have a peaceful free birth at home with her second baby. She humbly shares her guidance with women who are ready to work through their fears, remember the innate wisdom of the body, and reclaim birth as the beautiful, powerful initiation into motherhood that it is meant to be. Renee offers one on one prenatal coaching and education online and in person home birth support in the Portland community. Renee, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
um, I think the only thing I would add is I'm a mama of two, and that's kind of my biggest and most important role right now.
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely. All right, so let's dive in. Can you please share with us what is the role of a sovereign birth guide and birth keeper?
Yes. I think I would want to start with just kind of defining what sovereign birth is for anyone who doesn't know that term because it is newer and kind of a new language. So the way I define sovereign birth is that it is birth that occurs outside of the medical system, so typically at home and without medical providers. And there's kind of two different types of birth that can fall into this. So you have birth that's supported by someone like me, who's a birth keeper, a non-medical support person, who's there to really be a sister, a resource, a support for emotional aspects of the birth and just kind of manage the space. Um, but they're not a licensed midwife. And then another type of birth that falls into this is free birth, which is what I had for my second baby. And that's birth without any kind of birth professional present. So just whoever you choose to have there, of course, family, friends, anyone that you want to be in your space. Um, yeah, so that is sovereign birth, and it's something that is growing recently in the past few years. And I would say the role of a birth keeper is really to hold the energy of the birth space and to always help the mother come back to her own power and intuition. And it's a very different dynamic than kind of a traditional provider and patient relationship because the birth keeper and the woman are on a level playing field. There's no someone's not in charge. The mother is the only one who's in charge, and she's kind of guiding the whole process according to her body and her vision and her goals for the birth.
Okay, so you had mentioned there's two types of sovereign birth, right? But also, isn't a home birth with a midwife also a sovereign birth?
I wouldn't define it as a sovereign birth, no, because there's a medical professional there. So if you have a licensed midwife,
Okay.
then she's a medical person. And that's kind of the distinction of sovereign birth is that there's no medical provider there.
Okay, great. And then, out of curiosity, who did you invite to be in your space when you had a free birth?
It was my husband and our 3-year-old son, who ended up being asleep for the actual birth, but he was there at the beginning of labor. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
fantastic. Okay, yeah, I'm hearing more this term birth keeper. And so that's just sort of, going back to traditional birthing ways.
Yes, it's it's something that is new, but it's actually not new. It's really just women supporting women in birth, which is how it's always been for all of time. Um, But it has this new definition in that now that midwifery has become licensed and regulated, there's restrictions on the way that midwives can show up for women in birth, and those vary from place to place. They're different in every state and every country, but I think that's why birth keeping and sovereign birth is growing, because women are looking for a different option that gives them more freedom and more power in their own birth.
Right. And wouldn't you say that in order to walk this path of free birthing, you probably have to do a, a bit of work prior to giving birth
Mm-hmm.
because you have to step away from fear and you have to do the work of deprogramming from the systems that we were raised in and also be strong enough to to put a boundary between you and those that bring their fears into your space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that exactly. It took me a lot of deep inner work that was really over multiple years to decide to take that path. And I think everyone's journey is different. You know, there are some first time moms who choose this. There's some women who choose this for their fifth or sixth baby who've been through a lot. But it is stepping outside of the status quo, and that can always feel scary. And there's potential for like social being like ostracized from your social network because you're doing something that is different. And so I think, yeah, protecting your energy is really crucial of deciding who you're going to share this information with and allow to be in your sphere during, especially during pregnancy, because you're so vulnerable and sensitive during that time that, yeah, you really do need to protect that energy.
Yeah. Now, can you share with us your birth experiences? Because you've had two different ones, and one informed the way that you were going to birth the second one.
Yes. So my first birth was planned to be at a birth center. And at the time, I kind of just wanted an unmedicated birth, was what I was, the knowledge I had at that point. And it's a rather long story, so I'll share the condensed version. But what ended up happening is that the birth center I was birthing at has a restriction that you can't give birth there after 42 weeks of pregnancy. And so for first time moms, going beyond 40 weeks is very common. 41 plus is actually the average. And so once I reached my due date, 40 weeks, I started getting a lot of pressure from the midwives to start to induce labor with, various natural techniques. And it was a really stressful, like 2 weeks, the end of my labor, really wanting to have a spontaneous labor and birth. And at that time, the only options I really saw was to try and make labor happen, to be at the birth center, or to have a medical induction at 42 weeks, because they would drop my care and I would have to transfer. And so I ended up actually going into labor right the day before 42 weeks. And I had just a long, slow labor. And I had to be at the birth center before midnight. Basically, I had this midnight deadline of being there. And so we went in, even though it was still pretty early labor. And, I had a cervical check, and they told me I was only 2 centimeters dilated. And pretty much right away, they suggested that I go to the hospital, which was very defeating.
Yes.
I had been working so hard, or just trying so hard to get there. And we ended up deciding to stay for the night. And they said we can just, see if things progress. So I spent a night there. And then in the morning, they checked me again, and nothing had changed. And um, looking back now, I can kind of see what happened. But what they told me is that I seemed like I was really tired, and they wanted me to have enough energy to push my baby out. And so they thought that probably going to the hospital and getting an epidural and Pitocin would be the best thing for me to be able to rest.
Oh,
And
God.
now I can look back and see that, there was no medical reason. Like me and the baby were both doing great.
Right.
And I was in labor and it was happening, but they just,
Timelines.
for liability reasons, I was 42 weeks and they didn't want me to be a risk factor for them. And so it was easier for them to send me to the hospital. So that's what I did. And it was really devastating, of course, because it was really the opposite of the birth I wanted. So I had an epidural and I had Pitocin and spent the day laboring at the hospital, in a bed, unable to really move.
Yeah.
We had some issues with the baby's heart rate was started to drop because of the Pitocin. And it was kind of this, uncertainty of whether they would allow me to continue laboring. But eventually I was able to kind of get up on the bed and move around as much as I could. And I think that really helped my baby move down and I was able to have a vaginal birth, which I'm grateful for that it didn't end in a surgery, but it was just a really disrupted labor. And yeah, really set the stage for me to have a hard postpartum and early motherhood with my first child because I really felt like I had failed. Yeah, it was really heartbreaking.
I had no idea that birth centers also have timelines.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is different, but I think in Oregon, home births, you can actually go until 43 weeks, but the birth center that specifically was only 42 weeks. And 42 weeks is pretty common across the nation for home birth midwife support.
So even if you were to have a home birth, the midwife also has a timeline of 43 weeks. They wouldn't let it go any longer than that because then they're liable.
Yeah, it's just the regulation that the midwives have to operate under. And, you know, this is kind of the issue of midwifery today and how it's licensed. There's lots of other restrictions too. Some midwives can't support a, a VBAC at home, or they can't support twins, or they can't support breech. And so there's a lot of things that their hands are tied. And in my opinion, it should just be the choice of the mother, not
Absolutely.
the regulations.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And that's where it all begins, this
Mhm.
portal of motherhood, right? Because the system does not respect mothers from the get-go.
Mhm.
And then we basically give birth and we don't have the power. We've given away our power because we just don't know and they just force fear on us all day long.
Mhm. Yeah, and when you're a new mom or a first time mom, it's really hard to know these things about how the system works. And so I thought I was choosing midwives in a place that supported the kind of birth that I wanted. And I didn't understand the context that I was in, the system that I was opting into, and how that was going to, yeah, take away my power, like how I gave away my power. I didn't even know I was giving it away, but that's what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And again, that just goes back to the when you are considering having a baby, we have to do the homework
Mhm.
of learning, hearing stories like yours to know the ramifications of the different choices that we make,
Mhm.
right? Because if somebody feels safe to give birth in a hospital, that's perfectly fine. And know that at any point, if they're pushing fear on you, you can dial it back and state your boundaries,
Mhm.
right? And also, if you feel, I mean, birthing is such a vulnerable state. So it's really important to have somebody that's going to be in your corner advocating for you at all times with a sane frame of mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I think a woman should choose to birth wherever she wants to, however she wants to. And you just have to know, like, if you're going to be in that context of a hospital or home birth with midwives or free birthing, they all have different risks and they all have different benefits. And it's just deciding what's the right choice for you because it's really individual. And you have to decide if you want to be in the position of having to advocate for yourself during your birth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just kind of Interestingly enough, it brings up that whole idea of we have no control. And so, even as a mother, with having a desire to free birth, knowing that if something happened, it's actually also not your fault.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's something around like personal responsibility that is really important to be aware of. And it's all, in all birth choices. If you're deciding to be with an OB in a hospital and you're deciding to go with whatever their recommendation is, like you're still responsible for that choice. Even if you're giving it to someone else, like at the end of the day, you're responsible for that choice and you're the one who's going to have to live with the impacts of it. Like you and your baby are the only ones who are going to live with that. And it's the same if you're having a free birth, you are taking that responsibility. And I think the difference is that you don't have someone else who you can kind of like put blame on. You're just more aware that like I am responsible. I'm the only one making decisions. And it does take a lot of inner work to get to that point of feeling confident enough to step into that responsibility and to build that inner trust and intuition that if something happens, I'm going to know that I need to get more support or I'm going to know that everything's okay. And it's like that trust of not saying we reject all medical help no matter
Right.
what, but saying that I will know if and when I need it.
Right. Right. And not being preemptive,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the hospital because I'm afraid X, Y, and Z. Don't be afraid first. Just know your options if it were to happen.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because the hospital will always be there,
Right.
right? It's sort of like when I talk about homeschooling, and I'm like, if anybody wants to try it, just pull your kid out. And if after 6 months they hate it, school's always going to be there. Go right back in. It's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So there tends to be fear around home births and especially free births, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, because we're not used to it. So, could you speak to us about some of the hurdles and misconceptions? Do you feel comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think I would start by just saying that the way that the maternity system is set up right now is exactly as you've been saying it. It's a fearing of birth, and so OBs are really experts at managing complications and emergencies and performing surgery. And so the way the system is set up is that it's always checking to make sure that something isn't wrong. It's kind of assuming that something is going to go
Is
wrong.
wrong.
Yeah,
Hmm.
is wrong. That pregnancy is an illness or, is just generally risky. And so when you hear a lot of birth stories, the majority of women give birth in hospitals, like 98, 99%.
Oh, yeah.
And so the stories we're hearing are not stories of physiological birth. We're hearing stories of birth that's been disrupted. Just going to the hospital itself is disruptive to how birth is meant to unfold.
Right.
And so I think that's really important for people to understand because you have to step outside of that fear-based model that we've been conditioned into in order to understand actually what birth is and how it works. And then it's really easy to see how home birth is supportive of that and is actually really protective of it. And I mean, just a little bit about the physiology is that, birth is meant to unfold in private, where it's dark and quiet, where you feel safe and it's somewhere familiar to you. And that's for women to be able to totally release and surrender into the process. And being unobserved is another really important part of that. And the hospital just it can't ever do that.
No.
There's strangers, there's bright
Bright
lights,
lights,
there's so many interruptions. And
slow moving.
so just being at home itself is protective of how we're meant to birth. And I say that it's not like just an idea. Like this is just the physiology of birth. This is how our hormones work. It's how oxytocin flows and the whole cascade works together. So I think for anyone wanting home birth, starting to understand just the basics of how birth is designed will take away so much of the fear because then you can understand how these interventions and interruptions in the process have a really big impact. And
Hmm.
so the stories we're hearing are not the truth about what birth actually is. So yeah, I think education is huge. I think working through your fears is really important, and education, goes hand in hand with that, but not like recognizing that fear is normal. And if you ignore it though, then it lives inside of you and it will probably show up in your birth in some way.
Right.
Um, and this isn't something that you have to do alone. Like that's why there's so many great educators now and women who want to support other women to go through this process. Because I don't think many women want to do it alone. We've always been
No.
in community with each other.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of stepping outside of that fear, learning the truth about birth, and then just yeah, protecting your energy again of like the stories that you allow into your space
Yeah.
and adding in those positive stories of women who've given birth the way that you want to give birth.
Right. Seeking out those stories of sovereign birthing
Mm-hmm.
and the whole free birth society. They
Mm-hmm.
have, if you follow their Instagram, they have so many beautiful examples of free birthing that just seems so lovely,
Yeah. Yeah,
empowering, just awesome.
it is. I mean, I was already starting to support women before I had my free birth, but then experiencing it myself is a whole nother level of just feeling so confident in myself and so powerful and just really, really intact with my intuition and instincts. And I mean, it's been life changing. Like, I just feeling how I have changed with my baby the second time and the experience we went through, it's worlds different. And it's, I'm so passionate about it because I want every woman to have this who wants it, to have this powerful birth because it's really meant to be an initiation.
Mhm.
And so many women are leaving their births feeling traumatized and
Yes.
defeated and
Mhm.
really struggle
Yeah.
and and feeling like our bodies are broken and they're not like we can birth, it's the system that is broken.
Right. Yeah. Yes. We're not supported in a hospital birth. Very rarely. I mean,
Mhm,
I hear that Oregon has a much more friendly system, but the system is the system. And at the end of the day, it's a machine and they just want to get you in and get you out.
mhm,
And that's not the way that the birthing portal is to be respected
mhm.
or received,
Yeah.
right? How do we receive children in reverence? It's definitely not in a hospital setting. Bright
Mhm,
lights, people poking at you, prodding you, reeling you from like room to room,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that experience right after your baby's born of being able to have them like on your chest and have no one talking to you, no one rubbing them, no one doing anything. It's really critical for both you and your baby and like this peaceful transition into the world. I feel like really sets our children up for life. Like
Yeah.
it's establishing that bond with their mother, which is so important. And yeah, I think it has really big ripple impacts within our communities.
Yeah. Yeah. I recently had referred a friend who was pregnant to a birth keeper. And after she had her baby, she texted me and was like, "Thank you so much. This this woman held space for me and it was just a beautiful birth." And that's so heartwarming to read and to know that this mother brought her baby into the world unassisted.
Mhm,
Like the bond between the mother and the baby and the father or partner that's there too and the children, it just makes such a huge difference
mhm.
instead of being in a sterile environment. So, what does your sort of prenatal coaching look like?
Yeah. It varies depending on the woman, of course, and what they're looking at wanting support in. But it's really just being there to walk with them through their pregnancy and to talk about those fears that are coming up, to talk about what's going on in their body, like any sensations they're having. And I would say it's always about trying to bring them back to their own intuition and inner knowing because I'm not the expert on what is happening for them and their baby. They are.
Right.
And so it's helping them to, get information, of course, get information, education, anything that I can share with them, but helping them to come back to themselves and know what's true for them. And I think that there might be a misconception that someone choosing this path is like rejecting of the medical system altogether. And there are some people who might feel that way, but it's just recognizing that you can access it if and when you want to. And if you're in your pregnancy and you decide that you want something, then you can go get it.
Yeah.
And that's how I approached my pregnancy. And I ended up, not feeling like I needed anything. But it's making it work for you instead of you working within the system that exists, and knowing that it's there for those really rare emergencies or complications that happen, and that it's really great and wonderful to have access to it when it can be life-saving. Yeah, so that's a long-winded answer, but just being a resource, being a sister, holding space. And it might look like, one session just to go through some specific fears they have, or it might look like meeting with them every month throughout their pregnancy, which is something I'm doing with a woman right now. And it's really beautiful to just watch her evolve over the whole process. Um,
Right. I
yeah,
would imagine that people would need to see you multiple times.
yeah, it tends to be that way. And
Yeah.
I would even say like I'm here for any woman who wants the support. If you're planning to birth with midwives or in the system, but you want to talk through these options and understand really what you're getting into, like I've been there, and I do want to support those women too, because
Yeah.
I feel like they need the information, and yeah, then they can make the best choice for them.
Right. Right. And with the extensive amount of research that you did surrounding the medical system and the medical system of birth, it's then people could see you to sort of learn about that because we aren't told that. And what I love about what you're saying earlier about um, being empowered, but also knowing that the hospitals can be a tool if you need it, right? If
Mhm,
you if you enter into your birth story for your child with that sort of knowledge, then you would have less of an inclination to access the hospital system as a means to whole health and wellness because it is not.
mhm, mhm,
The hospital system is definitely meant to exist as a tool. They're great for emergencies, but long-term preventative care is not the specialty of allopathic medical doctors.
mhm,
They may think they are, they might position themselves as such, but it's not. And we already see the results of years and years of allopathic medical care.
mhm. Yep. Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I feel like, do you feel like there are more birth keepers stepping into the space?
I feel like there are, there's a few different programs that I'm aware of in the US that women are going to learn and to train for this. And I think it's really necessary because I don't think most women want to choose free birth. I think that they do want support. And that's okay. And it will be a different birth experience, because whoever you invite into your birth is going to influence it in some way. And so it's important for women to know that. But having someone there who understands normal birth and can be just this sounding board and this source of kind of calm and centered grounding can be really beautiful for women to have. And it's different than your partner.
Oh, for sure.
And my partner was amazing during it, and he did so great and was so calm and was everything I needed. And for me personally, like I just knew that I wasn't going to feel comfortable with someone there who wasn't like my immediate
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
But other women feel differently. And like finding someone who you really connect with can be so beautiful. And just to have that sisterly support and that feminine energy in your birth is beautiful.
Yeah, and I've interviewed doulas before where they sort of reference your birthing team,
Mhm.
right? So, do you feel like it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? Somebody who is pregnant could potentially hire a midwife or a doula for a portion of it where the midwife can take care of, like, if you have some concerns about like the health of your child or whatever, but then when it comes down to actual birthing, they could skip the midwife and just go with the birth keeper, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can and you should do anything you want.
Yeah.
And some women do that, like have, traditional or not traditional, but what's become standard prenatal care,
Yeah.
and then just don't call, their provider and have a free birth or have a birth keeper there.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think it's about making it work for you and choosing the support that you want and that you need and knowing that that can change at any time.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the beauty is that we have choice at any moment in time.
Mhm. And I think my goal as a birth keeper would be to support a woman so much in pregnancy that she feels really confident that she can birth without me there,
Right.
that I'm not there to do anything really besides just support her and love her, and that she would feel so confident that she might not call me and she would be just fine. Yeah. So it's
Yeah, and you hear stories of people where because they've been working with a doula or a midwife, and they feel that confidence and the shift of the energy within your system, that basically when it's time for the baby to come, the baby just comes before the midwife can even make it. And
Mhm,
that's the beauty of embodying safety and security.
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. I mean, when I first learned that there are birth keepers, I just knew it's so times they are changing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful to see. And I mean, I would say it's still such a small percentage of women who are doing this, but hopefully it will help to start change the system overall if more women are demanding this and wanting these options. And it's just about, yeah, about having options, being able to
Yeah.
choose what you want. And I would say there still is kind of like a gap in that there might be someone who wants actually a medical professional there, but who can't have it because of the regulations. And so that's
Mm,
still like this need I see of like, you might actually want someone who has certain skills or medical training, but you're not able to get it at home. And I really feel for those women who want that because you're stuck in between this challenging choice of choosing to go all the way into the hospital or choosing to go as a sovereign birth, where really you want something in between.
in between.
And so I would love to see like midwifery regulations be able to change to support more women who want that kind of care.
Or midwives just stepping out of the system
Yeah.
and there being like a trust agreement between the mother and the midwife,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Like I am inviting you into my home to be my birth tender. We won't even call her a midwife. Like you're basically putting your midwife license away and you're showing up as a friend and a sister
Mhm.
with the knowledge that you've
Mhm.
gained through your studies.
Yeah. It puts them in a potentially tough position if they end up utilizing any kind of medical skills because they can get in trouble
Mm,
for that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's the laws and the rules that are like constraining us, and
Yes.
it's yeah,
Yeah.
something needs to change for sure. But I love that women are now able, I mean, they've always been able, but are recognizing that they can step out of it and do something different.
Yeah. Agreed.
Mhm.
Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, well, I could talk about this forever, but I guess I would just speak to any pregnant women or women thinking of their next birth and just reminding them that you have everything you need and you are so wise and your body is wise, and just come back to yourself again and again and again of what's right for you, what's right for your baby, and only you can decide that. And I just I believe in you, and I believe that you can have the birth that you want and that you deserve it.
Thank you. Now, might you have a book that you could recommend for people to step more into that sovereign space at all? Birth,
Mm,
sovereign birthing, tapping into your intuition,
I mean, there's
listening to
a
your baby.
yeah, I think there's many great options for like books and podcasts, and I would say a book that I think is really good for just understanding birth is by Sarah Buckley. Gentle Birth, Gentle Mothering is really good, just foundation. I think any woman giving birth should know how birth works.
Right.
So I would recommend that. And then I would recommend birth stories. Really, listening to other women is so powerful, and you can learn so much, and just it's like medicine for your soul of coming back to your own inner knowing.
Yeah.
And it takes practice, I think. It's something that you should be honing now before you're pregnant and all throughout your pregnancy. It's like this deep inner work of coming to trust yourself. Yeah.
Did you want to share a little bit about your second birth story?
Oh, yeah, we kind of skipped over that a little bit. Yes, I can. I mean, it's a pretty simple story because most free births are. There's just not a lot of drama at all, but I planned, or I was ready to go to 42 weeks, obviously, because that was my experience. But I was surprised, and I went into labor right around 40 weeks. A couple days passed. It started early in the morning, and I just kind of spent the early morning with my son, and we did some baking, and it was just really relaxed. And then we ran a few errands as a family, and I just kind of had a normal day, and that's what I wanted, was just to keep going on living my life. And then in the afternoon it started to get a little bit more intense, and it got to the point where I felt like I didn't really want to be with my son anymore. It was hard for me to focus and go within, and so I kind of retreated to my bedroom, and then spent the next few hours just laboring alone. And while my husband kind of got our son ready for bed and things started getting pretty intense, and I did wish kind of that he was with me at that point, but um just was riding the waves. And probably from around like 7 p.m. until he my baby was born at 2 a.m. It was very intense. Contractions were right on top of each other, and I was just kind of in and out of the shower and in my room, just moving however felt good. I mean, it was ferocious, was the way I described it immediately. Like it blew me away by how intense it was, but it was also very peaceful because there was just nothing to do besides keep going.
Yeah.
And around 2 a.m. my water broke, and the baby immediately started to drop down, and I had about 10 minutes of just involuntary pushing. My body started pushing, and then he was born. And I was standing up in the shower when he was born. My husband caught him, and I just knelt down and brought him to my chest, and it was amazing.
Ah, gosh, Nicole, it sounds so wonderful.
Yeah, it really was. It was beautiful. And I mean, I can't describe it, how it felt exactly, but just looking down on his little face, and he was crying, and he was just perfect. And he looked exactly like my first son. Um, and we stayed in the bathtub. We filled it up with some warm water, and we just stayed in there for a while.
Ah,
I birthed the placenta, and then we moved into the bed and started nursing, and then we did a cord burning ceremony, which was really really special.
beautiful.
And then we just were home, and went to sleep, and my son woke up in the morning and came
Ah,
in to meet his little baby brother. And it just was so normal. It was
right.
just we just were home, and we stayed home, and it was just a normal birth.
so peaceful.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Oh my gosh, that story is so heartwarming, because compared to like a hospital birth, if you were at a hospital birth, you'd come home or not come home, and the baby that your firstborn would have to go visit you at the hospital. It's so cold and just everything. Whereas this is just, oh, it's just another day in the life, and here's a new human being.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I had envisioned having my first son more present in the birth, but that ended up not being what I wanted and, the timing, but I just love that he knew something was happening, obviously, and then he goes to sleep and he wakes up and there's a baby there and he just gets to grow up with that knowing that this is just birth.
Yeah, right.
Birth can be
It's
simple.
normal.
Mhm.
And this is how we change the stories. Because
Mhm.
when he grows up and it's his time to have a baby, he will remember it can just be done at home and there
Mhm.
won't be any fear around it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It was it was so peaceful and it was really life-changing. I mean, it was everything I knew that it could be, but experiencing it yourself is something different altogether. And I just feel like it was the most easeful transition for my son into the world. And I can really see the difference in just in his personality and in his demeanor that he is very intact is really the only way I can describe it. He's whole. He's not missing anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. I love to share it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it will give people hope and a curiosity to learn more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's out there for anyone who wants it. I think that's what's really beautiful. And it's not
Yeah.
without, like, you have to be brave and courageous and you have to really own it and step into it. I don't think it's easy by
Mm-mm.
any means to do it, but it is available to you and you get to choose. And that's what's really beautiful.
Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, thank you so much, Belinda. It's really great talking with you.
Yeah, same. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.